Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to episode 13. And I do have a correction to make. I started off the last episode by saying episode 11. It was episode 12. So now we're in episode 13. And as you can see, I am joined by a special guest, my wifey, Miss Shantel Rivera here. She has agreed to join me and continue the reading process here. So, super excited. Just so you understand, so like I've been telling you guys, I've been in ESV. She's actually going to be reading out of NIV, so there might be some changes. If you've been following ESV, but nonetheless, the message is still the same. Just let us know in the comments exactly what kind of interpretation you are getting from your version of the Bible that you are reading. Um, yeah, so she's gonna take it away, and we're gonna be following along. And yes, please smirk when she misses a name because I've been dealing with this for 12 episodes now. So yeah, let's go ahead and do this. Genesis chapter 37. Let's go.
All right, we're going to be talking about the story of Joseph. Joseph, one of the 12 sons, was obviously the favorite. Hated by his brother for this, Joseph was sold to slave traders only to emerge as a ruler of all Egypt. Through Joseph, we learned how suffering, no matter how unfair, develops strong character and deep wisdom. Okay, that was just a little synopsis of what to read. Genesis 37. Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. This is the account of Jacob. Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his brothers. The sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his brothers' wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age, and he had made a richly ornamented robe for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him, and could not speak a kind word to him. Joseph had a dream. When he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain in the field, when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it." His brothers said to him, "Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us?" And they hated him all the more, because of his dream and what he had said. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. "Listen," he said, "I had another dream, and this time the sun, moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me." When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, what is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you?" His brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind. Joseph sold by his brothers. Now his brothers had gone to graze their father's flocks near Shechem, and Israel said to Joseph, "As you know, your brothers are grazing their flocks near Shechem. Come, I am going to send you to them." "Very well," he replied. So he said to them, "Go and see if all is well with your brothers and with the flocks, and bring a word back to me." Then he sent them off to the valley of Hebron.
I'm not helping you.
When Jacob arrived at Shechem, a man found wandering around in the fields and asked him, "What are you looking for?" He replied, "I'm looking for my brothers. Can you tell me where they are grazing their flocks?" "They have moved on from here," the man answered. "I heard them say, 'Go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them near Dothan. But they saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. "Here comes that dreamer," they said to each other. "Come on now, let's kill him and throw him into one of those." How do you say that?
I'm in a different.
Cisterns? And say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams. When Reuben heard this, he tried to rescue him from their hands. "Let's not take his life," he said. "Don't shed any blood. Throw him into the cistern here in the desert but don't lay a hand on him. Reuben said this to rescue him from them and take him back to his father. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the richly ornamented robe he was wearing. And they took him and threw him into the cistern. Now the cistern was empty, there was no water in it. As they sat down to eat their meal, they looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were loaded with spices, balm, and myrrh, and they were on their way to take them down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, what will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood. His brothers agreed. So when the Midianite merchants came by, his brothers pulled Joseph up out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites, who took him to Egypt. When Reuben returned to the cistern and saw that Joseph was not there, he tore his clothes. He went back to his brothers and said, the boy isn't there. Where can I turn now? Then they got Joseph's robe, slaughtered a goat, dipped the robe in blood. They took the ornamented robe back to their father and said, we found this. Examine it to see whether it is your son's robe. He recognized it and said, it is my son's robe. Some ferocious animal has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces. Then Jacob tore his clothes, put on a sackcloth, and mourned for his son many days. All his sons and daughters came to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. No, he said, in mourning will I go down to the grave to my son. His father wept for him. Meanwhile, the Midianites sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, one of the Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard. Judah and Tamar. At the time, Judah left his brothers and went down to stay with a man of Adullam.
A Dolomite?
No, mine's different.
Oh, see, yeah. I got a Dolomite, so that's where you at?
Adullam.
Adullam.
Named Hira. There, Judah met the daughter of a Canaanite man named Shua. He married her and lay with her. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son, who was named See, I was making fun of you. This is payback. She conceived him again and gave birth to a son and named him Owen.
Which one are you?
Onan.
Or Anon.
She gave birth to still another son and named him Shelah. It was at Kezib that she gave birth to him. Judah got a wife for his firstborn, and named her Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the Lord's sight, so the Lord put him to death. Then Judah said to Onan, how do you say it?
Oh, no. I told you.
Lie with your brother's wife and fulfill your duty to her brother as her brother-in-law to produce offspring for your brother. But Onan knew that the offspring would not be his. So whenever he lay with his brother's wife, he spilled his semen on the ground to keep it from producing offspring for his brother. What he did was wicked in the Lord's sight, so he put him to death also. That's true.
Sorry about that, folks. We did not catch that one and read that ahead of time, so discuss that with your kids in the following manner you wish.
Judah then said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, live as a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up, for he thought he may die too, just like his brother. So Tamar went to live in her father's house. After a long time, Judah's wife, the daughter of Shua, died. Then Judah had recovered from his grief. He went up to Timnah to the men who were shearing his sheep, and his friend Hira, the Adullamite, went with him. When Tamar was told, your father-in-law is on his way to Timnah to shear his sheep, she took off her widow's clothes, covered herself with a veil to disguise herself, and sat down at the entrance of Enam, which was on the road to Timnah. For she saw that though Sheila had grown up, she had not been given to him as his wife. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, for she had covered her face. Not realizing that she was his daughter-in-law, he went over to her by the road and said, "Come now, let me sleep with you." More discussion. And what will you give me to sleep with you? "I will send you a young goat from my flock," he said. "Will you give me something as a pledge until you send it?" she asked. He said, "What pledge shall I give you?" "Your seal and its cord and the staff in your hand," she answered. So he gave them to her and slept with her, and she became pregnant by him. After she left, she took off her veil and put on her widow's clothes again. Meanwhile, Judah sent a young goat by his friend, the Dulamite, in order to get his pledge back from the woman. But he did not find her. He asked the men who lived there, "Where is the shrine prostitute who was beside the road in Anam?" There hadn't been a shrine prostitute here, they said. So he went back to Judah and said, "I didn't find her. Besides, the men who lived there said there hadn't been any shrine prostitute here." Then Judah said, "Let her keep what she has, or we will become a laughing stock. After all, I did send her this young goat, but you didn't find her." About 3 months later, Judah was told, "Your daughter-in-law Tamar is guilty of prostitution, and as a result, she is now pregnant." Judah said, "Bring her out and have her burned to death." As she was being brought out, she sent a message to her father-in-law. "I am pregnant by the man who owns these," she said, and she added, "See if you recognize these seal and cord and staff. These are." Judah recognized them and said, "She is more righteous than I, since I wouldn't give her my son Sheila. And he did not sleep with her again. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. As she was giving birth, one of them put out a hand, so the midwife took the scarlet thread and tied it around the wrist and said, 'This one came out first.' But when he drew back his hand and his brother came out, she said, 'So this is how you have broken out.' And he was named Perez. Then his brother, who had a scarlet thread on his wrist, came out and was given the name Sarah.
Have you seen Woohoo at the Winnie Palmer Hospital? Like,
The times before C-section.
yeah, just.
Joseph is thrown into jail. Genesis 39. Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. Potiphar, an Egyptian who was one of Pharaoh's officials, the captain of the guard, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord had given him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household and entrusted him in his care everything he owned. From the time he put him in charge of the household and all of the things that he owned, the Lord blessed the household of the Egyptian because of Joseph. The blessing of the Lord was on everything Potiphar had, both in the house and in the field. So he left in Joseph's care everything he had, with Joseph in charge. He did not concern himself with anything except the food he ate. Now Joseph was well built and handsome, but after a while his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, come to bed with me. But he refused. With me in charge, he told her, my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns has been entrusted to my care. No one is greater in this house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God? And although she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. One day he went into the house to attend his duties, and none of the household servants were inside. She caught him by his cloak and said, "Come to bed with me." But he left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house. When she saw that he had left his cloak in her hand and ran out of the house, she called her household servants. "Look," she said to him, "this Hebrew has been brought to us to make sport of us. He came in here to sleep with me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream for help, he took his cloak beside me and ran out of the house." She kept his cloak beside her until his master came home. When she told him of the story, that Hebrew slave you brought came to me to make a sport of me. But as soon as I screamed for help, he left his cloak beside me and ran out of the house. When his when his master heard the story, his wife told him, saying, "This is how your slave treated me," and he burned with anger. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. But while Joseph was in prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in prison, and he was made responsible for all those that were done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care, because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did.
Alrighty. Hope you guys enjoyed somebody else messing up names in the scripture. This was our first guest on this journey here. I look forward to having multiple guests on. There will be an update. Look out for a post that I'm going to be talking about, because Exodus is coming up right around the corner. And I know a lot of you out there, whether you guys are active followers or not, know the story of Moses. So, let's get ready for that. But, please give a warm thank you for Shantel joining us tonight. It was surely a pleasure her stumble over herself, because I am not the only one and I refuse to be. So once again, thank you guys. Share, like this, comment, let me know what your thoughts are on this. I hope you're enjoying this, and we'll see you next time.